brush my teeth this morning.
I didn't either.
Found it. Putting on deodorant because I didn't shower, so I have to do something.
Dude, I did right after, but I don't know.
I meant to throw out, it smells, it has my puke on it for my birthday last year, and I meant to get it dry cleaned, but I didn't, so it's just been sitting in my closet. Like, there's a difference. Like, I'm not dirty, I'm just messy. Like, there's a difference.
Don't shower, they overshare, but somehow they're relatable, cool, brandable. They're what I like to call dirty influencers. She's white, she's chaotic, she lacks basic hygiene, and in spite of, or even because of, she's built an entire brand. Hi, I'm Sharon, and this is me Unfiltered. Today we're going to be peeling back the layer of influencer culture, hygiene politics, and the quiet privilege of being chaotic and white online. So, what is a dirty influencer? So, a dirty influencer, according to my definition, is a creator, most often white woman with beauty privilege, who intentionally forgoes poor hygiene, disarray, or chaotic self care as a form of authenticity, which is then aestheticized, monetized, and rewarded by audiences and platforms. But how did I get this idea, you ask? Well, I went down this whole rabbit hole on Reddit, which was titled, and I quote, "Why do influencers think lack of basic hygiene is normal?" And the title was so funny to me, I decided to read the whole thread at that point. And there was one particular comment that stuck out to me, which said, "Yeah, it's really gross that only pretty white influencers get away with things like this." And as someone else said in the same comment section, Emma's been dirty in reference to Emma Chamberlain's hygiene habits. But essentially, I want to clarify this video is not to shame people's hygiene issues or problems, but rather to analyze them and how they play out in media, respectability politics, relatability, and authenticity with their audiences.
I don't shower except for like once a year, so I personally am not showered in the shower, and I probably won't, and I'll probably just wait till I get home to shower because my hygiene is...
You'll get home and you won't shower.
And that's such a good point.
One of the topics I really want to explore in this video is white privilege and respectability politics. I want to explore how both of those bleed into the influencer industry. So, for instance, if a black woman or another woman of color had said they hadn't showered in multiple days, or something along those lines of basic hygiene, they wouldn't be praised for being relatable, but they would be either scorned for being lazy and unfit, or just basically any other negative connotation towards that. So when white influencers like Emma Chamberlain, Alex Earle, Madeline Argy, they get praised for their hot mess energy, but black women, especially right now in TikTok, on YouTube, at least presently in 2025, presenting yourself like this online isn't relatable or even marketable. It makes you a threat to your own image. And right here is where I want to bring in the origins of respectability politics. So, respectability politics is the idea that people from marginalized groups, especially black women, have to perform a clean version of themselves to be accepted. We have to be polished, presentable, put together, because we're constantly being judged not as individuals, but as representatives of our entire community. So, whilst a white girl not washing her hair or washing her sheets is cute or girly, when a black woman does the same thing, not only is it ghetto or unruly, it also reflects badly on other black women, because we're judged as a collective, not as individual people. It's the same behavior, basically lack of hygiene on both instances, but whiteness protects it and blackness punishes it. And as Britney Cooper said in her book Eloquent Rage, which I definitely recommend you guys should read, black women are always performing respectability because we know what happens if we don't. We're either invisible or hyper visible in the worst ways. And so often, the real world politics or issues in the real world bleeds into the influencing world, whether we like it or not. And that includes white privilege and respectability politics. But respectability politics was first coined by historian Evelyn Brooks Higginbotham. God help me if I pronounce that wrong. God help me. I'm sorry. And this is in the book Righteous Discontent, 1993. It describes how black women in the post-Reconstruction era used cleanliness, modesty, and morality to counter racist stereotypes. By the post-Reconstruction era, I mean basically after slavery, but basically between after slavery and before civil rights era. correct me if I'm wrong, basically. The key idea here is that black women were expected to perform hyper responsibility to protect the entire race. Whilst white women are not held to this standard, their mistakes are individualized, so only one person is responsible for their own mistakes, not racializing the whole entire group. But basically, the argument here is that today's influencers, dirty influencers, like I like to call them, benefit not from needing to perform respectability because white femininity is already seen as default or even safe. Like people can see them as like, oh, you're naturally automatically clean because you're white. They don't question their cleanliness, basically. But in addition to this, I do want to bring in the politics of purity and cleanliness and the association to whites. So cleanliness has long been used to symbolize morality, femininity, and whiteness. So if we look at the book Foul Bodies, Cleanliness in America, it basically argues that cleanliness equals civilized and civilized equals white, which basically makes the whole idea of being a clean girl, quote unquote, very much racialized. So an aspect someone cannot even control. And this framework was basically used mostly during colonialism and slavery, but I still think it's used now in the influence industry or just on social media in general. And this is what they said in the book, and I quote: "This fight against filth came to the point where white linen, white skin, and civilization became intertwined." So the argument here is that cleanliness shown through white linen clothing becomes bound up on moral and racial boundaries, not just hygiene. And now white women can now aestheticize messiness because whiteness has never been tied to filth. Black women, on the other hand, we have to live with the historical burden of being clean enough to be seen as worthy. And finally, in this point section of this whole thing, I want to bring in intersectionality because not only are we women, but we're also black women. And intersectionality plagues anything that we do and is constantly a topic of discussion when you look at women of color, for instance, especially in influencer spaces. It's not just about being white that gets you this privilege of being messy and be this dirty influencer, but you have to be white, skinny, and conventionally attractive. So it's not just race, it's race, gender, class, and body image that gets you this privilege to be this messy person, and people find that relatable. So white thin wealthy woman can be messy and still be aspirational. For instance, Alex Earle. But a fat, dark-skinned, working-class black woman being messy is pathologized. So this and it's not aestheticized. So you cannot get away with something that something like Alex Earle could get away with because she's rich and she's white and she's conventionally attractive. So there's just layers of things that make it work. You can't just get away with this by just being white. That's what I'm trying to say. But then intersectionality, I think, shows us that the freedom of being messy isn't equally distributed. It's reserved for those whose identities are already seen as normal or desirable. So being white for the longest time has been seen as normal and desirable. And I still think to some instance, for some people, it still is that desirability thing. And respectability politics teaches us that we have to overperform hygiene, poise, and polish just to be taken seriously as a white, dirty influencer, let alone be profitable to yourself in the influencing like industry. And now we're watching white girls get paid for the exact kind of messy that we were historically punished for, basically. That was this section. But in the next section, I do want to mention before I move to the next section actually, that there's this weird paradox in this whole dirty influence idea that I've been thinking when I was writing notes about this. Because the reason why I've been looking down is just at my notes is that the clean girl aesthetic exists in the same timeline that the dirty girl, dirty influence, or the hot mess whole thing exists in. They all exist in the same timeline right now. And at the forefront of both movements is still white women. I just thought that was an interesting paradox that in the bodiness of clean girl cleanliness, but also in the bodiness of hot mess or dirty influencer, they're both white women at the forefront of those movements.
In specific, I used to never flush after I would use the toilet. Stand by it. If it's yellow, let it mellow. Okay, you don't need to flush every single pee.
Then guys, my mic died mid-video, but rain or shine, we will continue. But in this section, I want to explore why the dirty influencer works, influence industry wise, but also the concept of parasocial intimacy. So, how does being dirty become desirable? The truth is, it's not. It's not the dirtiness that makes any of that desirable.
bother me, or that it doesn't bother me that much. And I was really, really depressed during this time in my life.
But rather the intimacy of the content. Being able to show your dirty room or be able to show yourself at your lowest or your worst is intimate to audiences. Its performance of chaos so carefully curated, it becomes branding. And in influencer culture, branding is everything. We think we're seeing them raw, but it's not real life. It's just real enough content. And relatable dysfunction becomes profitable because it's only filtered through the lens of whiteness, thinness, and beauty, meaning that my room may be messy, I may not have showered for 3, 4 days, but I still smell nice or I don't stink in a sense.
Like, I'm not stinky. Like, I smell I smell clean.
she
like
smells
I have,
great.
I have good hygiene. I just I posted cleaning my room at home, and I'm like, at least I'm cleaning my room.
But I still look good despite all the mess around me. So relatable dysfunction in a sense. They don't lose they don't lose credibility when they show mess. I think that in fact as influencers they gain credibility. So the dirty influencer isn't, I guess, unintentional, but it's rather strategic. These influencers show you their messy bathrooms, their half-eaten food, crusty makeup, but it's edited to feel real enough. And it's not complete chaos, it's curated relatability. And it's polished enough to be marketable. In fact, I could be doing this to you in this video. But now I want to talk about the concept of parasocial intimacy, at least the illusion of intimacy. But to break it down, I want to talk about parasocial relationships. So, coined by Horton and Wall, parasocial relationships are one sided emotional attachments with media figures. And I think increasingly, especially in 2025, with YouTube, TikTok, Insta, they blur the boundaries when influencers overshare their poor hygiene and other issues like mental health, so on. So you start to feel like a friend and not a viewer. So the death makes you feel like you've caught them in a private moment because normally influencers are supposed to be curated and perfect, right? You're supposed to be jealous of them in a sense. That mess becomes proof of the closeness you have with them. But the algorithm doesn't reward real mess. It rewards pretty mess, quirky chaos, or aesthetic dysfunction. Like you have to look beautiful within that mess or dysfunction. So I want to tie in Brooke Erin Duffy's work on aspirational authenticity in influencer culture. She says, and I quote, "Influencers today sell the idea that they're just like us, but also better. That's the paradox. So they want to be relatable enough that you can identify with them, but I'm still better than you, so you want to aspire to be them. And this dirty behavior is rewarded. So we can see like Alex Earle, Madeline Argy, they've both received them brand deals. So Alex Earle has a brand deal with Wear Beauty, American Eagle, Ultra. Madeline Argy has a Spotify podcast, Amazon partnership with Revolve. But basically, despite the dirty vibe, they're still welcomed into aspirational spaces such as beauty, fashion, and wellness. But black creators trying to show the same vulnerability are labeled as ratchet, ghetto, lazy, or even unprofessional. Parasocial intimacy isn't granted in the same way to people who don't match beauty and racial standards. When whiteness performs chaos, it's endearing. When blackness shows struggle, it's disqualified basically. And the same pattern creates a brand for some and a barrier to others, which is really why I want to really analyze these behaviors basically. Brooke Erin Duffy also says authenticity is the currency of the influencer economy, but it's not a neutral currency. It doesn't just come to you, there's a price for paying for it basically. And finally, I want to bring into this concept of authenticity and parasocial intimacy cultural capital. Cultural capital is the social currency that signals the value in society. It's how people look the part without even having to say anything. So the concept of cultural capital comes from Bordeaux. In this way, I want to normally cultural capital is used in like education or so and so or like with children and stuff, but I want to bring it into the influencing space, but in relation to cleanliness. So the cultural capital here is cleanliness, poise, professionalism. They're all forms of capital that some bodies are assumed to already have. By some bodies, I mean white, pretty women. So white influencers can play dirty because they're already coded as clean. they have capital to waste. They don't lose credibility when they show the mess because whiteness and beauty act in as built-in capital. They already have an assumption that they're clean, so they can waste it by being dirty influences, basically. And even mental health disorders become aesthetic in a sense. But essentially, it seems like the point I'm trying to bring into this is that a mixture of white privilege, respectability politics, built in cultural capital, basically a lot of like other political issues and theories play into this idea of the dirty influencer. And then because of this, I feel like we say the same way we have white women with quote unquote built in cultural capital, we can oppose that with black women, other women of color, in the sense that black women are often formed to overperform cleanliness, intellect, professionalism, and politeness because they're not granted the same automatic respect when they walk into a room or desirability in a sense. So, where whiteness has the privilege of being sloppy, blackness is required to be polished. Cultural capital isn't just what you have, but it's what others think you lack. So, Bordeaux says that cultural capital, our habits, our taste, and even how we carry ourselves signal social value again. So, when you walk into a room, people assume that because you're white, pretty, dressed a certain way, that she must have something. But you, as a black person, you have to do that 10 times more and be more polished, basically. So when they post greasy hair or filthy room, a lot of like white influencers in the dirty influencer trope post this. It doesn't really hurt them. It makes them more relatable. Their mess isn't real. Like again, I said it's curated chaos, but the same privilege cannot be extended towards black influencers, for instance. But that was my analysis on the dirty influencer. It really seems like I'm putting my degree to the work because this was so fun to research. And people don't tell you how fun researching is when it isn't for uni, when it really isn't for uni. And I think it's just a combination of like interest, degree, but this was my idea of the dirty influencer. Please let me know your thoughts. But yeah, I've been Sharon, and this has been me Unfiltered. If you like the video, please share, subscribe, share again. But I also write on Substack if you're interested in like my thoughts like this. So whenever I have power and energy, a YouTube video will be published. But most of the time, I'm more consistent on Substack, but I am gaining consistency on here too. But all of the links and all the references I've made in the video for like books and everything will be in the caption. Same thing with links to social media and Substack or just links to anything resource and research wise. But thank you. So guys, it seems like my mic has died mid-video. Don't flip sake. This is why I don't like someone in the UK because why is there she going left and right, going left and right, going left and right? I can't even do a video in peace. Don't have a tripod, so you're going to have to bear with me like this. And I should have had a tripod by now. But behind me is my messy background, which is ironic because of what this video is going to be. But I feel like your working space reflects who you are as a person. And I guess although it's messy, you can see the collaboration of books to makeup. So I guess that's like a good equivalent of who I am as a person, or at least what my content gives. There's a combination of just books, stuff I like to read, but I also just really love makeup. But this is today's makeup look. What was I going for? I normally, if you know me in real life, you know that I do a lot of soft makeup looks, but I'm trying to like deviate from that as I mature, get older. Just turned 20 this year, so this is very much the mature side of things. But yeah, outtake. Peace out.